I want to welcome you to OutSpoken, which is an LGBTQ author festival. It's Maine's first of its kind. We see diversity as a source of strength. For us, LGBT communities are the vital part of the quilt of American life.
We are so thrilled to be here today to co-host this event with AARP. We are outspoken every day in our coverage of all the stories that matter to Mainers, no matter their community.
The arson fire that I write about, which took place at a gay bar called the Upstairs Lounge, claimed 32 lives and injured 15 others on the night of June 24th, 1973, so 45 years ago this past June. No culprit was ever publicly named or charged for these murders. Yet, 43 years later in 2016, when an armed American citizen named Omar Mateen gunned down 49 people in a gay nightclub in Orlando called Pulse, a bygone tragedy in New Orleans suddenly became resurrected in public memory, appearing on Reddit, and the New York Times, and Times London, the Daily Beast, countless news channels, and it became cited as this historic antecedent, another classic example of anti-gay violence to strike American citizenry.
And it means a lot to me that I'm able to come and share the story of the Upstairs Lounge fire to a new group so far away from New Orleans. And it helps validate for me, and I'm sure for the survivors and the family members of the victims of the tragedy, that these stories continue to matter.
I remember saying to you that I felt it was interesting to be interviewing somebody, challenging to be interviewing somebody who was a full-grown woman, but feel like I was talking to this 12-year-old person.
For those who might not be familiar, the book is about my mother's murder in Bridgeton in 1994. In the process of writing the book, just to back up a little, it was often, the most difficult moments were often unexpected things. I'd be going through autopsy reports, and those would be terrible in all the expected ways. And then I would talk to a friend of mom's, and they would talk about how, she had kind of a disappointing final birthday.
This event is really serving an important purpose. I think older queer people, it's kind of hard to find community. Maybe you're not in the bars and going to the parties, and I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on extreme youth in queer communities, and I think it's really wonderful that something like this is happening, and I'm happy to be a part.
Sprinkled the top with a remaining 1 tablespoon of crushed candy, placed the pie, for reasons unknown, on an old, unfinished wooden cutting board and baked at 475 degrees for 4 to 5 minutes, or until golden, serving at once was less than ideal. By now, they were soporific from their whitish servings of pierogies, roast beef on the side, pickles on the side of that. My father, a diabetic, and my mother, a devotee of Weight Watchers, eyed my pie with fascinated revulsion. I cooked my heart out for my mother in those 10 years that we had reconciled. I shared some of the burden of caregiving with my 2 siblings who lived in Edmonton and Sydney. Perhaps only my mother understood who I really was, a girl waiting and waiting with regret and excitement.
I spoke today about my new book, How Places Make Us, Novel LBQ Identities in 4 Small Cities. And the book is about how places change the way we think about who we are. It was really wonderful to be here today and to engage with a very responsive audience, and to get to share these stories with people. And it was especially meaningful for me to come back to one of the places I'd studied and to share the stories I'd collected there with individuals who live in or near Portland.
If you've cared for an aging parent, grandparent, loved one, you have experienced the joy, frustration, and sadness that comes with providing care on such an intimate level to someone you love. My grandmother used to say, all modesty has gone out the window. In Bettyville, George Hodgman shares his journey caring for his mother with us, while also sharing what it was like to grow up in rural Missouri, coming to terms with his own sexuality.
Today was supposed to be my day off. I was going to drive 50 miles to Columbia to see a movie called The Master. The plan was to buy the Sunday New York Times, read it at Lakota Coffee Company, see the movie, and then go to Taco Bell, which is my secret disgusting vice. But when my mother finds out about this, she decides she has to go too. I guess she has been longing for art house fare. She will not take no for an answer and is rearing to take off. I sense looming disaster, but she is actually ready to leave by my scheduled departure time. She has put on her new blouse, a little snug, a little form-fitting now. I look so buxom, she says, as she glances in the mirror on the way out, as she always does. Betty, I say, you're 90 years old. If you've got it, flaunt it. Now would be the time.
And you can't change fate. You can't change time. You can't change aging. You can find one thing every day. And if you can find that thing, it will usually make them feel better, and it will make you feel like you've accomplished something.
This is the first type of this event that's ever been held in the state of Maine, and I am so proud that AARP is getting on the bandwagon and helping the alternative community, including the alternative community. AARP is making a great effort. This was one of the best days I've ever had.
I love the event. For me, this was a day that, we've looked forward for a while, and we've looked forward to for a while. I thought the speakers were wonderful.
It was so good to hear the personal stories and the personal side of things, and to connect with the authors and their stories and their humanity, and also especially enjoy the ones about being with their moms and caretaking, because my mother's getting frail and my partner is actually up taking care of her mom.
Thank you for being a part of this day. Go forth and stay connected.